Welcome to the Trump Breaking News Network, your daily source for up-to-the-minute Trump news. Join us today and every day. Here's today's news.
This is TBNN.
Donald Trump said Saudi Arabia was behind 9/11. Now he's going there on his first foreign trip. By Mehdi Hussain. Does Donald Trump have even an ounce of shame? As a presidential candidate, he spent much of the election campaign needling, critiquing, denouncing, and even threatening the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Yet as president, he is making his first foreign visit this weekend to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Even by Trumpian standards, the volte-face is brazen. In his first few months in power, we have witnessed the trademark Trump Turnabout on issues ranging from NATO to China to the Export-Import Bank. We have listened to him go from praising Bashar al-Assad and rebuking Janet Yellen on the campaign trail, to praising Yellen and rebuking Assad in office. Last October, he said that then FBI Director James Comey had guts for doing the right thing. Last week, he sacked Comey and called him a showboat and a grandstander. Trump, to put it mildly, is no stranger to the shameless U-turn. Still, the Trump turnabout on Saudi Arabia, one of America's closest allies since President Franklin D. Roosevelt met with King Abdulaziz ibn Saud aboard the USS Murphy in 1945, is a true sight to behold. This weekend, Trump will arrive in Saudi Arabia for a bilateral summit with King Salman as well as a series of meetings with members of the Gulf Cooperation Council. There will be handshakes, hugs, and smiles galore. We will be expected to forget how Trump blasted the Saudi royals for being freeloaders and threatened them with an economic boycott. Speaking to the New York Times last year, Trump claimed that, without U.S. support and protection, Saudi Arabia wouldn't exist for very long. The real problem, he continued, was that the Saudis are a money machine, and yet they don't reimburse us the way we should be reimbursed. Asked if he would be willing to stop buying oil from the Saudis if they refused to pull their weight, Trump responded, "Oh yeah, sure. I would do that." We will be also expected to ignore the fact that Trump slammed the Saudi government for executing homosexuals and treating women horribly. In the third presidential debate last October, Trump attacked Hillary Clinton for taking $25 million from the Saudis, from people that push gays off buildings. These are people that kill women and treat women horribly, and yet you take their money. Perhaps above all else, we will be expected to brush under the carpet the fact that, twice in a single day, Trump accused Saudi Arabia of being behind the 9/11 attacks. Who blew up the World Trade Center? Trump asked his pals at Fox and Friends on the morning of February 17, 2016. It wasn't the Iraqis, it was Saudi. Take a look at Saudi Arabia. Open the documents. At a campaign event in South Carolina later that day, he again cited secret papers that could prove it was the Saudis who were in fact responsible for the attacks on September 11. It wasn't the Iraqis that knocked down the World Trade Center, because they have papers in there that are very secret. You may find it's the Saudis, okay? To be fair to Trump, far more credible and better informed figures have come to a similar conclusion. I am convinced that there was a direct line between at least some of the terrorists who carried out the September 11 attacks and the government of Saudi Arabia, wrote former Florida Senator Bob Graham, who co-chaired the Senate Intelligence Committee's inquiry into 9/11, in an affidavit in 2012. Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump walks from a campaign stop Wednesday, February 17, 2016, in Bluffton, South Carolina. AP photo, Matt Rourke. Donald Trump walks from a campaign stop February 17, 2016, in Bluffton, South Carolina. At the event, he cited secret papers that could prove it was the Saudis who were responsible for the attacks on September 11. Photo, Matt Rourke AP. Whether or not the Saudi government played a role in the 9/11 attacks, and we may never know, for a leading U.S. presidential candidate to claim that they did, not once but twice, had to be seen to be believed. And yet, astonishingly, a little over a year later, it is to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia that Trump has chosen to make his maiden foreign voyage, rather than to Canada or Mexico, as every president since Ronald Reagan has. Will Trump return from his Saudi jaunt with a big fat check? His much-hyped reimbursement? Will he dare raise the issue of gay rights while in Riyadh? Or women's rights? Will he manage to bring back a Saudi royal or two in handcuffs for their alleged role in the 9/11 attacks? Please. There are greater odds of the American president coming back as a proud convert to Islam. Hypocrisy is not the exclusive preserve of Trump or the United States, of course. Saudi Arabia sees itself as the birthplace of Islam, ruled by a king who styles himself custodian of the two holy mosques. Yet this coming weekend, the Saudi government will offer a warm and lavish welcome to a president who has said Islam hates us and wanted to ban all of the world's 1.6 billion Muslims from entering the United States. The Saudi position on the latest iteration of the Trump travel ban, targeted at 170 million odd Muslims? A sovereign decision aimed, apparently, at preventing terrorists from entering the United States of America and made by a true friend of Muslims. On Sunday, the fawning Saudis will offer a platform to the world's most famous Islamophobe, to give a speech on Islam in the birthplace of Islam. And Trump will likely take the opportunity to decry radical Islamic terrorism while visiting a country that has perhaps done more than any other to incite, fund, and fuel it. Hypocrisy unites them both. So too does their fear and loathing of the Iranians. The Saudis are busy dropping bombs and backing militants to push back Iranian influence in Yemen and Syria. The Trump administration, filled with Iran hawks, is on the verge of inking a series of arms deals with Riyadh worth more than $100 billion. To be clear, Trump's U-turn on Saudi Arabia has little to do with being moderated by the realities of high office or swayed by the Beltway's foreign policy elites. Despite his bombastic campaign rhetoric, he never planned to go after the Saudis in office, even after publicly accusing them of murdering 3,000 Americans. Early on in the campaign, in 2015, a senior Arab diplomat told me, on condition of anonymity, that Trump had informed most of the Gulf governments, in private, that his anti-Muslim and anti-Arab rhetoric was all for the campaign and that it would be business as usual once he was elected, or, for that matter, defeated. As ever, for Trump, it is always, above all else, about the bottom line, his bottom line. The Saudi-bashing Trump sold an entire floor of the Trump World Tower to the Saudis for $4.5 million in 2001. And would it surprise you to discover that Trump also registered 8 companies tied to hotel interests in Saudi Arabia in the midst of his Saudi-bashing presidential campaign? Of course not. Business is business. Trump is Trump. You might be repulsed by his deceitfulness, but you have to admire his chutzpah.
That's the news. Join us here every day. Be sure to subscribe and click the bell. See you next time.
This is TBNN.